The old jacket no one noticed. Some emblems aren't stitched in fabric, they are stitched in memory. Let us know in the comment section below. Have you ever witnessed a moment of unexpected respect that changed the entire atmosphere? Bruce Maxwell didn't walk like an old man. He walked like a man who still remembered formations. Heels aligned, head level, back straight, as if decades hadn't passed since his last uniform inspection. At 81, he moved with the type of posture that didn't ask for attention but quietly commanded it. You could have mistaken him for a retired professor, or maybe a retired contractor, but beneath the surface, behind the navy pool ball cap and olive field jacket, was a soldier's heartbeat, steady, watchful, and calm. He didn't wear medals, just the faint outline of a patch long since faded, barely visible against the threadbare shoulder of his jacket. The initials 2/7 had been hand-stitched decades ago, rubbed nearly smooth from years of wear. Only someone who knew would even recognize it, and Bruce never pointed it out. He wasn't the kind of man who spoke about Vietnam unless you'd earned the right to ask. It was just past 8 a.m. when he arrived at the Midway Transit Plaza. Always early, always routine. He waited for the 24 Express like he did every Monday and Thursday morning, standing beside the same yellow post, hands folded on the handle of his cane, eyes scanning the horizon like he was on watch. Then came the shoulder. Not a bump, a full-on shove. The man was in his late 20s, earbuds in, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. Barely even noticed Bruce. He didn't look back when Bruce stumbled sideways, nearly losing his footing. Bruce didn't yell, didn't curse. He just reached instinctively for balance, steadied himself, and exhaled through his nose. Years ago, he might have reacted differently, but a man learns to choose his battles with age. This one, not worth it. But someone else thought otherwise. Logan Reese had been seated just a few feet away on the low stone ledge beside the bus map kiosk. Marine fatigues, regulation cut, a duffel bag tucked behind his boots. He wasn't moving like someone in a rush. He was watching, silent, but alert. He saw it happen, the way the man's shoulder met Bruce's, the way the crowd parted but didn't pause. No apology, just cold disinterest. People kept scrolling, kept walking. Some looked up for a second, then right back down. But Logan rose. Not aggressively, no posturing, just a slow, deliberate motion like he was rising from a field bivouac. Calm, but with purpose. He approached Bruce from the side, gently placed a firm hand under his elbow and steadied him fully upright. "You okay, sir?" he asked quietly. Bruce blinked. "I'm fine, son. Just wasn't expecting that." Then Logan saw it. The jacket, the threadbare shoulder, the ghost of a unit patch that hadn't been sewn by machine. His voice dropped just a bit, like it had lowered for gravity. 2-7, he said. 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines. Bruce's eyes snapped to Logan's, the faintest spark lighting behind them. "You served?" "Still do," Logan nodded. "Camp Pendleton, Lima Company." Bruce let out a slow breath, something that hovered between a laugh and a sigh. "I was Hotel 68. Quezon." Logan didn't say anything right away. He just squared his stance and called it out, loud enough to pierce the white noise of transit chatter and phone calls and idle gossip. "Marine down, 2-7. The crowd paused. Not because they understood, but because his tone demanded it. Had 3 words, and everything stopped. A businessman turned his head. A high school student lowered her earbuds. A woman on a call stepped aside. Suddenly Bruce wasn't just an old man who got in someone's way. He was something else. Someone else. Logan shifted position, stood directly beside Bruce like a fellow sentry. "Sir," he said, voice steady, eyes forward. "You don't wait alone." Bruce didn't smile. But something behind his eyes changed. There was pride there. And something else? Recognition. Not just of the Marine standing beside him, What of the world, just for a moment, remembering? A few more seconds passed before the young man who'd done the shoving finally looked back, confused, maybe annoyed. Logan didn't flinch. "Something you need to say?" he asked, voice low but unmistakably marine. The guy shook his head and walked off. Logan never moved. He didn't follow. Didn't threaten. He didn't need to. And the stop stayed quiet after that. Bruce broke the silence a few minutes later. "You always like that with civilians? Only when they forget who stands behind them?" Bruce's lips quirked slightly. "Good answer." They stood side by side until the bus hissed to a stop in front of them. Logan gestured first. "After you, sir." Bruce stepped forward slowly. As he climbed the steps, he turned his head just enough to say it, softly, over his shoulder. "Semper Fi," Logan responded without hesitation. "Always faithful, sir." And then the doors closed. But not before a dozen strangers realized they had witnessed something rare, something unspoken, something earned. He wasn't just an old man. Bruce didn't go straight home after the bus dropped him off. He rarely did. Thursdays were his circuit days, the kind of quiet routine that gave structure to the silence of retirement. First the cafe for a plain bagel and coffee, then the American Legion post, then, sometimes, the park. Familiar faces, familiar steps. He preferred it that way, predictable, clean. Until someone else decided otherwise. The cafe was only 3 blocks from the bus stop, tucked into the side of a brick building that had probably been redone 4 or 5 times since he'd come home from Vietnam. But it still smelled like real coffee and bacon grease, and that was good enough for him. He stepped through the door and gave a slight nod to the girl behind the counter. Addie, barely 20, always polite, never asked questions about the cane. "Hey, Mr. Maxwell," she greeted with a soft smile. "The usual?" Bruce tapped 2 fingers on the countertop and eased himself onto the stool at the end, the one with the cushion slightly thicker than the rest. "Old bagel, toasted, black coffee. I'd say make it quick, but you already know that," he said. She laughed and turned away. There were a few others inside, 2 college kids glued to their laptops, a young couple sharing earbuds and one smoothie, and a man in a dark jacket seated near the window. Bruce clocked him almost immediately. Not suspicious, just off. Something about the posture, the eyes, the way he wasn't really drinking the coffee in front of him, just letting it sit. Most people miss things like that. Bruce didn't. After the morning at the bus stop, he was more aware of everything. His shoulders still carried the muscle memory of patrol, that moment when a shove from a stranger turned into something sacred. It had stirred something. When Addie returned with his plate, Bruce asked quietly, "The kid at the bus stop, the Marine, what's his name?" She blinked. "The one who helped you?" "I don't know. Thought he was your grandson or something. He left right after you 2 got on the bus." Bruce nodded slowly. "Nope, never met him before today." "You okay?" she asked, her voice dipping into that gentle concern that made people suddenly sound older than they were. He didn't answer directly. "Oh, he just surprised me, is all." Addie lingered for a second, then walked away when the bell rang over the door. Bruce took a bite of his bagel and chewed slow. That voice was still in his head. Marine down, 2-7. It had done something more than honor him. It had pierced the bubble. For years now, Bruce had felt like he was slowly disappearing, like the things he'd done, things no one really wanted to hear about, were dissolving into the background of a world that moved too fast. Cell phones, earbuds, touchscreens. No one made eye contact anymore, and maybe, in a way, he'd stopped expecting them to. But that kid, Logan, he hadn't seen an old man. He'd seen a brother. Bruce finished his coffee, left a 5 on the counter, and stepped back out into the street. The park was just across the intersection, through a cluster of trees that lined the edge of a war memorial. He usually avoided the bronze statues and granite walls. They stirred memories, he'd rather leave alone. But today, he walked straight toward them. The wall was simple, black stone etched with names, hundreds of them. Some he'd known, some he'd heard last in radio calls. Others were just names. All of them mattered. He stood there for a few minutes before he realized he wasn't alone. A boy, maybe 11, 12, stood a few paces away, looking at the wall but not reading the names. Just staring. Bruce glanced at him. "School project?" The boy jumped slightly, then turned. No. I come here sometimes. My uncle's name is on there." Bruce didn't ask for the name, just nodded. "You served?" the boy asked, noticing the jacket. "I did." "What was it like?" That one gave Bruce pause. Kids never asked questions like that anymore, not with real interest. Usually it was a vague, half-curious, "Thanks for your service," and they moved on. Bruce studied the boy's face. His eyes weren't wandering. He was waiting. "It was loud," Bruce said after a beat. "Hot, confusing. We weren't always sure what was going on, but we looked out for each other." The boy nodded like he understood. "My dad says my uncle was a hero, but I don't really know what he did. I don't think anybody tells the truth about it." Bruce didn't smile, but he softened. "Sometimes it's not about what they did, it's about the fact they were willing." The boy looked down. "Do you ever miss it?" he asked. Bruce looked back at the wall. "Every day," he said. Then he turned and walked away. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't heavy with music or sentiment, just truth. He walked the edge of the sidewalk until he reached the Legion Hall, but today he didn't go in. Instead, he sat outside on the bench, letting the traffic hum fade into the background, watching people pass. He knew things were different now. The world didn't stop for men like him. But today proved something else. There were still moments when it paused. Just long enough to remember. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was the beginning of something better. Logan Reese didn't sleep well that night. It wasn't nightmares or anything dramatic. Just that feeling like something had been left undone. Like a gear in his chest kept turning even after the day was over. He'd flown back from Camp Pendleton just 3 days earlier, on leave for the first time in 10 months. He'd planned to decompress, visit his mom, catch a couple baseball games, maybe sleep in for once. But after what he saw at the bus stop, those plans felt like a worn-out script he couldn't read anymore. He kept replaying the moment, the look in Bruce Maxwell's eyes when Logan had said 2-7. That flicker of memory. Not nostalgia, memory. There's a difference. Nostalgia's soft. Memory's a weight. Cullen had seen it before, on the faces of the older vets who visited the base for Marine Corps birthday events or reunions. But Bruce hadn't been part of a ceremony. He wasn't standing in front of cameras or applauded by a crowd. He'd been pushed, ignored, practically invisible, and it pissed Logan off more than he expected. That's why, the next morning, he found himself on a bus heading back to that same stop. No uniform this time, just jeans and a hoodie. He wasn't even sure what he was doing. He just needed to see if Bruce was there. Maybe talk to him. Maybe nothing at all. The bus pulled in at 7:58. Bruce wasn't there. Logan waited anyway. Time passed. People came and went. The city hummed, oblivious. Then, at 8:12, Bruce appeared, walking from the direction of the pharmacy, a white paper bag tucked under one arm. Logan stood. Bruce noticed him right away. He didn't look surprised. "You again," Bruce said as he reached the stop. Logan gave a nod. "Didn't get a chance to say thanks or ask your name." Bruce raised an eyebrow. "You were the one doing the helping. You don't need to thank me." "I do, for your service," Logan said plainly, "and because what happened yesterday, it didn't sit right with me." Bruce studied him for a long moment, then gestured toward the bench. Logan followed, sitting beside him. "Bruce Maxwell," he finally said. "Sergeant." Vietnam. I was boots on the ground before most of today's kids were even ideas. Logan Reese, Corporal. Still active, Logan replied. You were with hotel company? Yeah, case on 68. That was hell, son. Logan nodded solemnly. I read about it in training. Doesn't do it justice. No, Bruce said. There was a pause between them. Not awkward, just respectful. You're not the first Marine to call out 2-7 like that, Bruce said finally, but it's been a long time. I didn't think anyone still remembered. Logan leaned back. We don't forget. Not the real ones. Bruce didn't answer right away. Then he said, You want to know the worst part of coming back? Logan nodded. It wasn't the nightmares, or the noise, or even the silence. It was the feeling that everything you gave, everything you risked, stopped mattering the moment you stepped off the tarmac. Logan's jaw flexed. I can't speak for everyone, sir, but I promise you, it matters. It matters to us. Bruce looked at him again, this time with something closer to emotion. You really believe that? I do. Bruce's eyes dropped to the street for a moment. Then he asked, You got family in service? My grandfather, Navy corpsman, Korea. Good man, Bruce said. We used to call those guys angels with guts. Logan smiled faintly. He used to call you all knuckleheads with rifles. Bruce laughed, not loud but genuine. They sat for a while longer, the city pulsing around them. Then Bruce said, You planning on staying in the Corps? Logan shrugged. I don't know yet. Part of me wants to re-enlist. Another part wants something quieter. You ever seen Quiet as a Mission? Bruce asked. Logan frowned. What do you mean? Bruce tapped the paper bag in his lap. PTSD meds, sleep aids, you name it. VA's finally starting to get better, but it took years of fighting. Men like me, we spent decades just trying to be heard. Logan listened closely. I think about the guys who didn't make it back, Bruce continued. And the ones who made it, but didn't last. Sometimes I wonder if I did enough. Not out there, but here. You did, Logan said. You being here proves it. But, Bruce shook his head slowly, maybe, but I can still do more. You want to help veterans, Logan? Don't just honor the names. Lift the ones who are still walking around, getting pushed at bus stops. Logan looked over, the gravity of the moment hitting him hard. I want that, he said. I don't know what it looks like yet, but I want it. Bruce nodded slowly, then, maybe we keep talking. I'd like that, Logan said. A lot. The bus arrived. The doors hissed open. Neither of them moved. Bruce gestured. Let's skip it today. I know a place down the street that serves bad coffee and good stories. You game? Logan grinned. Lead the way, Sergeant. The coffee was awful, just like Bruce promised. Thin, bitter, and served in mugs that looked like they hadn't been replaced since the Reagan administration. But Logan didn't care. It wasn't about the coffee. It was about the way Bruce leaned back in his chair with ease, the way he talked like time wasn't chasing him anymore. There was a comfort in the air between them, an unspoken agreement that this conversation, unlikely as it was, mattered. They talked for nearly 2 hours, about deployments, about family, about the strange weight of returning home and pretending everything still made sense. Bruce shared a few names from his unit, names that lived only in memory now, and Logan listened like they were sacred. Because they were. The diner had mostly emptied out by the time Bruce glanced at the clock. He exhaled slowly. You know, he said, I used to think people like you were just born different, braver, stronger. But I think the truth is, you're just young enough to still believe in what the uniform can change. Logan didn't smile, not fully, but the corners of his mouth twitched. It does change things, he said. Not everything, but enough. Bruce looked down at his hands. Scarred, steady, aged by more than years. Sometimes I forget what it felt like to be proud of it. You get pushed enough times, you stop wearing the jacket. You fold it up, put it in a closet, let it collect dust so the world can forget along with you. But you wore it yesterday, Logan said gently. Yeah, Bruce replied, his voice quieter. Yeah, I did. They left the diner together, walking at Bruce's pace. Logan didn't rush him. It felt wrong to. When they turned the corner onto 8th and Pine, something strange happened. A group of teenagers were huddled near the corner, cutting through the sidewalk like they owned it. Normally, Bruce would have stepped aside, let them pass. He'd been made invisible too many times to try otherwise. But Logan didn't step aside. He stayed directly next to Bruce, shoulders square, chin level. And the teens? They moved, not out of fear, but because they sensed something. A presence. A line they couldn't cross. Bruce glanced up at Logan as they walked past. That happen a lot? Not enough, Logan replied. But maybe it starts today. They stopped a few blocks later near the community center. Bruce looked over the faded mural on the side wall. Veterans from different wars, painted side by side, their faces idealized and brave. But underneath, the brick was cracked, chipped. You see that? Bruce asked. Yeah, Logan said. The paint's peeling. No, Bruce said. I mean, yeah, but that's not the point. Look at the eyes. None of them are looking at each other. All forward. Alone. Logan stepped closer. He hadn't noticed that. They always paint us like that, Bruce said. Solo warriors, lone wolves. But we were never alone. Not in the fight. Not really. That's just how they remember us. Like statues. Logan stared at the mural, then back at Bruce. What would you change? Bruce didn't answer right away. Then he turned and said, You know anyone at the V? Logan shrugged. A couple of admin folks. Why? Bruce rubbed his jaw. I've got an idea. 3 weeks later, the mural came down. Not painted over, preserved, transferred to canvas, and framed inside the center's lobby. In its place, a new mural was commissioned. This time, the figures were turned slightly toward each other, hands extended, one veteran helping another off the ground, a cane in one hand, a salute in the other, and in the center, 2 men, one young, one old, standing together, shoulder to shoulder. The young man held nothing. The old man wore a faded field jacket with a nearly invisible patch. But the way they stood, that was the story. Local press picked it up first. New mural honors generations of service. Then a national veterans organization shared it on their social media. The caption read, Respect is never out of style. Let's bring it back, one act at a time. Bruce never got used to the attention. He didn't want it. But the community did something else that surprised him. They renamed the plaza, where the bus stopped, where it all began. Maxwell Square. The sign wasn't fancy, just black metal letters on a brushed steel post. But underneath it, a small bronze plaque was installed with a single inscription. In memory of every veteran who stood alone and every Marine who made sure they didn't stay that way. Bruce stood in front of it one morning, weeks after the dedication. Logan was beside him, hands in his jacket pockets. This was never about me, Bruce muttered. I know, Logan said. But sometimes we need names to remind people the stories are real. Bruce squinted up at the plaque, then back down at the bench. A young boy sat there now, maybe 10. Next to him, his father, a man in his 40s, was pointing to the sign, explaining the names. The boy looked up, wide-eyed, nodding. Bruce watched silently. That's what respect looks like, he said quietly. Logan nodded once. Semper Fi, Bruce said, almost like a benediction. Always, Logan replied. And together they sat down. No crowds, no speeches, just 2 Marines, decades apart, hearts aligned, watching a world that, for once, remembered.